Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Advanced Football X's and O's. So now we're going to start getting into running offenses and running defenses. And first we're going to talk about rushing offenses. And there's two different styles of rushing offenses. There is generally, or the primary ones, is there's gap or power running, and then there's zone running. We're going to talk about both today. We're going to start off with power running. And this is either called power or sometimes it's called gap scheme. But what we're really concerned about with power running is that we want as many down blocks as we can possibly get. And a down block, if we looked at our left tackle here, if we were running the ball to the right side, what we would be looking at is if our tackle was blocking this backside end, this would be called a down block because he's literally just blocking down on him. The run is in a position where he is already in between the defensive player and the run, so he's literally just blocking down on him and either sealing him or just trying to push him out as far as possible. And that is kind of the essence of power running or gap scheme running, in my opinion, is you're just trying to get as many down blocks as you possibly can because they are simply the easiest and most effective blocks to do. For on the contrary, the exact opposite of a down block would be if this left tackle had to block this kind of inside three technique tackle right here, this defensive tackle. He has to kind of reach out and get in between where the defender is and where the run is going. He doesn't start there, so it's a much harder block to pull off. And if he only was responsible for this reach block, there's a good chance that this defensive tackle, if he's fast enough, could just blow through the line of scrimmage. So that's kind of why we want as many down blocks as we possibly can get, is because they're just easy and very effective blocks. So now we're going to talk about the power running. So here, what's going to happen is that our guard is going to pull, and that all the other offensive linemen and tight ends, whoever's on the line of scrimmage, they all look, and is there someone on the outside shade of me away from the run or to my next lineman? Here, the tackle says, yeah, there is, so he's going to block him. And generally what happens with him is he kind of seals the backside, but if he doesn't really have a threat of penetration to the backside, he can climb second level and maybe grab a corner or a safety, something backside. Since our guard is pulling, we're not concerned about him just yet. Our center, no one's in front of him or no one's on the inside of him, but he does have a tackle there, so he blocks down. We have another down block. So this play side tackle is interesting. There's no one in front of him, there's no one shaded inside of him, and there's no one all the way to the heads up with his guard. So what he's going to do is he's probably just going to climb second level and grab a linebacker. You could do some different things with him here. He could combo and then go up. He could chip maybe this end, but generally he's going to be climbing second level. And our tight end, he has a defensive end right inside of him, so he down blocks there too. So the key to power, when we start talking about the difference between power and counter, which we're going to get into, the fullback does the kick out block on the end man on the line scrimmage on power, and then the guard wraps up second level and blocks the first available unblocked defender. So if we can kind of back up, with these down blocks, what really happens here is that we kind of create an alley. And what ends up happening is all this trash kind of gets moved left. A huge pile of linemen just happens in this area. It's just a lot of bodies are just pushing as hard as they can to the opposite side of the run, and you just generally get a huge just pile of bodies in this area. And that's kind of the goal from the tight end down, is to just get a seal right here on the inside. That's what they want. And then the fullback kicks out the end man, which is usually some type of linebacker or safety walk down, and then they create another seal on the outside, and then it basically turns into the guard is in the front and is just going to block whoever tries to kind of fill that alley, and then the running back is right behind him. And that's kind of what power tries to do. It just tries to seal the inside, and it tries to seal the outside, and then you have a lead blocker with your guard and the running backs following them. You try and get just as many scrappy yards as you can. This is a very physical play, and it often looks really messy when it happens, but when it's done right, it can go huge. And you've seen it with beast mode versus the Saints. That was power running. It's just a lot of bodies get thrown around, and you're just getting generally a big running back to just run through a hole. So that's power. So now we're going to look at counter, which is in the same family as power. It's also a gap run, and it's blocked the same exact way from alignment standpoint. We do down blocks. Sorry about that. We do down blocks all the way down. We still pull the guard. We're down blocking everything. Once again, we still get second level. We down block the end. But now the difference between counter and power is simply that now our guard is responsible for getting kind of the seal on this outside end man on the line of scrimmage, and then our fullback is the one getting second level and blocking the first available defender. But because the guard has to kick out this end man, he has a bit of a harder time, or it takes him slightly longer to get over there than the fullback. So what you end up getting is you usually get like a misdirection step. Usually you're running back and your fullback maybe step left at first. Sometimes the fullback doesn't step left, but then kind of the quarterback does like a weird handoff, and then the running back pivots back over for the handoff. That's generally how counter gets run. There's a slight misdirection with it. But what the real difference between counter and power is that with counter, the guard is kicking out the end man and the fullback is getting second level, to where if we pull back up power, the fullback is getting that seal on the end man and then the guard is pulling up. So there's kind of pros and cons to both. With counter, you usually get like a little bit of misdirection, but generally they're pretty much the same exact play. As you can see from the linemen, if we switch between two of them, they have the same blocks. Like, that doesn't change for the linemen. It's really just the guard and fullback change responsibilities between the two of them. So what these are, very physical. Generally, you want really big linemen. Since you're only pulling a guard, maybe this guard you want to be a little bit athletic, but everyone else, you just want to be like these big road grading offensive linemen that just move people. Because once again, we just want this huge pile of defensive linemen and linebackers. We want to just push it left if we're running right. We're just trying to push that as far as we can, get some seals, and then get the running back through whatever hole we can create. Sometimes it's really tiny, sometimes it's really big. It just depends. So that's power running. Next, we're going to go through zone running. And the misconception with zone running is when people hear zone, they kind of think about like defensive players when we talk about like a defensive back in a zone, like they're responsible for an area of the field. That's not what happens with zone running. Zone running, there's very specific assignments for the linemen. They're making several calls within a play. Usually there'll be like 3 of them between the offensive linemen, declaring who they're going to block and how they're going to block it. They have like these little code words and tags that they call at the line of scrimmage. But once again, we're not like zoning off an area of the line. That's not what happens here. So with zone running, everyone kind of blocks play side. And kind of like where we kind of block backwards with down blocks, we kind of do the opposite with zone running. So if we're talking about like an inside zone, what's going to happen is that this left tackle is going to say, okay, no one's in front of me, I'm going to block up. This guard is going to say, I have no one in front of me, I am not covered, so I'm going to help the next lineman. So what's going to happen here is that this center, like this back tackle, is going to block here to this tackle, but this guard, since he's not covered, he's also going to combo down with him. And what ends up happening whenever you have a combo block in zone blocking, and this is kind of the staple of zone blocking, is that you get these double teams. And then with the double teams, whichever way this tackle goes, this defensive tackle. So if the defensive tackle got like reach blocked really well by the center and kind of drifted left a little bit, then the center would combo up to grab a linebacker. But then say this tackle did a really good job kind of getting forward on this play, and that they were able to seal him a little bit well with the center, then this guard would kind of come up and get second level and get that combo block. But that's kind of the key, is that when you have a double team in a zone blocking scheme, one of the 2 players will combo up and get a linebacker or a safety, whatever is available to be blocked. That's the key. We want very short double teams. We want to get up on them, kind of position them. If we could, we would love for the guard to get kind of in front of this defensive tackle and for the center to get up. Sometimes that's not always possible, but we do want a combo block. And then it happens here too with this play side guard. He's also going to combo over. They're going to combo, and then one of them is going to come up, and then our tight end is going to solo block on that end man. Then our fullback, usually it's kind of a weird thing with the advent of reading or zone reads. You usually don't block this end man, but the old style of doing it is that you do have a fullback that comes out and just kind of holds the backside, and then our running back kind of is just aiming for I think he aims for the outside hip of the tight end or the tackle. He aims at one of the hips of the tackle. Sorry, it's out of my mind right now. But then he kind of just reads this. He kind of reads these front side linemen. If the end like crashes really hard inside, he's going to run outside of them. If he crashes out, then he's going to go to the next gap. And then if this tackle goes in too, then he's going to go to his next gap. And that's kind of what happens with these zone plays. I guess I'll do it in black so you can see it. Is that he has several options of which gap to go. He kind of goes outside in, I believe, in that once again, if this gap is filled and the end is really good there, then he's going to come to the next gap. And then if that tackle fills over, he goes to this gap. And if the linebacker fills that, then maybe he'll cut it back. And that's kind of where the difference between zone blocking and man blocking. In man blocking, if we pull back up like power, it's kind of predetermined that he's going to follow his guard and that he's just going to run in that seam that we talked about. With zone, it's a bit different in that he has options with several different gaps he can hit. He can even bounce it out if it is blocked in a certain way. But that's kind of zone blocking. And inside zone and outside zone are blocked the same way, just like power and counter are blocked the same. Inside zone and outside zone are the same too. And that if we kind of drew this up with outside zone, it would be the same thing, but instead of them just trying to block the guys in front of them, what they try to do is that they try and reach block them. And what ends up happening is that since all these linemen kind of do these super like sideline steps, they do it like super far. And if we just kind of look at it from the tight end's perspective, instead of just trying to block him like he did in inside zone, what he's now going to try and do is he's going to try and reach block him, get outside of him, and seal him. But the natural reaction of this defensive lineman or this Sam linebacker here, he's going to be like, crap, this guy's trying to get outside of me? No, I'm not going to let him. I'm going to get outside of him. And then the same thing happens with this end too. He's like, oh, this guy's trying to get outside of me? No, I can't let that happen. I'm going to get outside too. And what ends up happening is that the entire play just kind of shifts to the side, and that the running back kind of aims for the same position, like right here on this tackle. But what ends up happening is that oftentimes he ends up hitting the gap here because the entire line shifts downwards. He just kind of hits it here, and that's really just the difference between inside zone and outside zone, is that with outside zone, we get super lateral steps by our offensive linemen towards the outside, and then that oftentimes forces the entire defense to be, I don't want to get outflanked, so I'm going to get outside too, and that the entire line of scrimmage just basically shifts sideways, and you get a lot of weird movements by the defense, and then kind of that's where like the back and forth between inside zone and outside zone comes, is that when you show kind of zone runs and they're expecting outside zone the entire time, they start shifting really hard outside, and it's just inside zone and we're just going to drive block you backwards and stuff like that. And I guess if I could make one more point about zone runs, if we pull this back up, when we kind of block, like say this end right here, if we kind of get a block right here by this tackle to this end, we're not really concerned if the end beats him inside or if the end beats him outside, because once again, the running back has a read. So if he's literally just, his job is to just push him backwards, and that if this end kind of jumps outside a little bit, he's going to be like, okay, sure, you can go outside. I'm then just going to try and drive you outside as far as I can. Or if that end jumps inside, this lineman's just going to be like, okay, I'm just going to drive you as far as I can to the inside. And it's just the job of the running back to read it. His job is just move that lineman, whether the lineman wants to be moved backwards or side to side. These linemen don't really care, and that's kind of the difference between zone runs and power runs, where with power, we were trying to move this entire line of scrimmage to the left. That's what our job was, just move it left. With inside zone, individually, these linemen can get moved left or right. It's not really, we don't really care. The lineman's just saying, choose a side that you want to go. As defensive lineman, I'm going to push you whichever way you want to go, and I'm going to seal you off. Our running back's going to read it, and he's going to choose the right hole. That is the essence of zone running right there. The key to zone running, though, is really double teams. But really, these plays are kind of achieving the same thing. If we look at power, we're really getting a lot of like solo blocks, and then we're climbing second level kind of with our guard and with our tackle. If we go to inside zone, it's really the same thing. Our backside guard is probably going to climb second level, and our play side tackle might also be climbing second level. It's just kind of two different styles that are achieving kind of the same thing. If like you really get down to the essence of these plays, they're really just achieving the same thing. They're getting single blocks on linemen. Here we're reach blocking them. With power, we're down blocking them. And then here we pull to the second level, where with zone, we just combo block to the second level. But really, we're just trying to achieve the same type of goals. So that's rushing offenses in a very simple level. We'll get into this deeper, but next we're going to get into how does the defensive line view these plays? How does the defense as a whole view these plays? We're going to get into how they do technique numbers, how they get to gap assignments and stuff like that, and some of the cool things that are actually happening with these gaps. But we really look at that from like the defensive perspective, and then we're going to see how do they stop these plays, and then we'll get into some of the really cool things with how does zone reads affect plays or options, and some of these like really cool things where like the 49ers where they did like 3 tight ends or extra offensive linemen onto the line of scrimmage. So we'll get into some of that cool stuff up next, but I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.